A single mother on a blind date said, "I'm not the girl you should be meeting." But the CEO fell in love for the most forbidden reason. Secrets came to light, and their lives changed forever. A story that will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment where you're watching from. The light March rain fell over New York City as Sarah Johnson parked her Honda Civic 2010 3 blocks from the restaurant. There were no spots closer, and she knew the valet at the establishment would probably wrinkle his nose at her car with its taped-up side mirror. Her fingers trembled as she turned off the engine, and it wasn't because of the cold. At 32, a single mother to Lily, a 6-year-old girl, Sarah couldn't remember the last time she had gone out at night for anything other than picking up medicine at the 24-hour pharmacy or doing an extra shift at the grocery store. "You need this," Jessica had insisted the week before, practically snatching the phone from her hands to create a profile on the dating app. "Even if it's just to remind you that you're still a woman, not just Lily's mom." Sarah had rolled her eyes, but deep down a part of her longed for it, to feel seen, desired, interesting. Not the tired Sarah who came home at 11 at night with swollen feet from standing 8 hours at the register. Not the Sarah who sometimes cried in the shower because she didn't know how she would pay for her daughter's school the following month. But the Sarah who existed before, the one who had dreams beyond just surviving until the end of the month. She checked her makeup in the rearview mirror for the 5th time. Cheap foundation from the pharmacy, trying to cover the dark circles of someone who slept 5 hours a night. The red lipstick had been a birthday gift from Jessica, something she would never buy for herself. "Red is the color of power," Jessica always said. At that moment, Sarah needed to believe it. She took a deep breath, grabbed her bag, a worn imitation of a famous brand she had bought in Chinatown, and got out of the car. The heels she hadn't worn in 2 years, making her ankles complain with every step. The Garden Bistro was exactly the kind of place she saw from the outside, imagining what life was like for people who could dine there without mentally calculating how many bills would go unpaid. The discreet facade hid an elegant interior, with soft lights creating an intimate atmosphere. The smell of rosemary and red wine filled her nostrils as the maître d' opened the door, and she had to hold back the impulse to turn around and run back to her car, to her simple and predictable life, where she didn't have to pretend to be someone she wasn't. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" The maître d', a middle-aged man with a well-groomed moustache, examined her from head to toe with that look she knew well. The look that tried to categorize, to decide if she belonged there or not. "Yes, a table for 2. Name, Cruz, Rodrigo Cruz." Her voice came out higher than she intended, and she cleared her throat, trying to regain some confidence. "Ah, yes. Mr. Cruz is already here. Please, follow me." Sarah's heart raced. He was already there. That meant she could no longer run away. Her legs trembled as she followed the maître through the occupied tables, feeling the curious gazes of other customers. Her silk blouse, the only truly expensive piece she owned, a remnant of the life she had before Lily was born and her partner disappeared, suddenly felt too tight, too obvious. And then she saw him. Rodrigo Cruz was sitting at a corner table, fiddling with his phone, and when he looked up upon their approach, Sarah felt the air escape her lungs. The photos on the app didn't do him justice. He was intimidating, tall, probably around 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that perfectly filled out his impeccably tailored navy suit. His black hair was slicked back, a few rebellious strands falling over his forehead, and his dark brown eyes studied her with an intensity that made her want to hide and be seen at the same time. He had a strong jawline, slightly shadowed by a well-groomed beard, and when he smiled, revealing perfectly white teeth, she realized she was completely out of her league. "Sarah?" He immediately stood up, and even that was done with a natural grace that betrayed someone used to commanding rooms, to being heard and respected. "It's a pleasure to meet you in person." His voice was deep, warm, with a slight New York accent that softened the words. He extended his hand, and when she shook it, she noticed how big and firm it was, yet surprisingly gentle. It wasn't the handshake of someone trying to prove something, but of someone genuinely happy to meet her. "The pleasure is mine," she managed to respond, sliding into the chair he had pulled out for her. Another point of etiquette that made her feel even more out of place. When was the last time someone pulled a chair out? For her? Maybe never. "You look beautiful," Rodrigo said as soon as he sat down, and there was something in his tone, a sincerity devoid of rehearsing, that made Sarah's face heat up. "I love the lipstick. Red suits you." Sarah smiled despite her nervousness. It was a gift from a friend. She said I needed color in my life. "Your friend is wise." Rodrigo picked up the menu, but his eyes remained on her. "Have you been here before? The truffle is exceptional, but if you like seafood, the shrimp risotto is the best I've ever had. In New York City." She looked at the menu and her stomach tightened. There were no prices, which always meant it was too expensive for her to afford. "Actually, it's the first time." "Then let me guide you." David leaned slightly, his smile becoming more comfortable. "Unless you're a vegetarian, vegan, or have any dietary restrictions I should know about." "No, no restrictions." Sarah closed the menu, relieved not to have to choose. "I trust you." The words slipped out before she could think, and there was a strange truth in them. For some reason, she trusted him, even though she didn't know him. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, not with the predatory hunger she sometimes saw in men at the market or on the bus, but with genuine curiosity, as if she were an interesting book he wanted to read. "Great." David waved to the waiter and placed the order with the ease of someone who frequented places like this regularly. When the waiter left, he turned his full attention to her. "So, Sarah, your photos don't lie, but they also don't capture this." "Capture what?" She tucked a strand of brown hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture she couldn't control. "This intensity. You have a look as if you're constantly calculating, evaluating. It makes me curious about what you're thinking." Sarah laughed, a genuine sound that surprised her. "Honestly, I'm thinking this place is way too fancy for me and that I'm probably going to use the wrong fork." David blinked, surprised, and then burst out laughing too. It was a real laugh, shaking his shoulders and lighting up his whole face. "You know, I was nervous that you would be all formal and distant. Thank you for being honest." He leaned inconspiratorially. "Between us, I never know which fork to use either. I just copy what others do and hope no one notices." It was a lie, obviously. A man like him, with a discreet yet unmistakable Rolex on his wrist, with the posture of someone who was born knowing which fork to use, didn't need to copy anyone. But it was a kind lie, a bridge being built between their different worlds, and Sarah felt something in her chest relax for the first time since she left home. "So, tell me about yourself," she asked, picking up her glass of water. "Your profile said you work in technology." "Yes, I have a software development company." David swirled the glass of wine already in front of him, watching the red liquid reflect the light. "We started focused on corporate solutions, but in the last 2 years we've shifted to education, learning platforms, apps for schools, that kind of thing." The way his eyes sparkled when he talked about work was contagious. Sarah found herself leaning forward, genuinely interested. "And what made you switch from corporate to education?" "My mom?" The answer came quickly without hesitation. "She was a teacher her whole life, raised me alone, and I saw how hard it was, how many students she couldn't reach because she didn't have the right tools. I always wanted to do something that made that easier, you know? That gave teachers and students a better chance. Sarah felt something tighten in her chest. Your mom raised you alone? Yeah. My dad, well, he wasn't in the picture. He left when I was 3, never came back. There was a vulnerability in those words, an old wound that had never fully healed. Sarah recognized it because she carried similar wounds. Suddenly, the intimidating man in the expensive suit became more real, more approachable. That must have been tough, she said softly, for you and for her. It was, but it also taught me a lot about strength, about character. David looked her in the eyes, and there was a depth there that made her forget to breathe for a moment. My mom is the most incredible person I know. She taught me that circumstances don't define who you are. Your choices do. Sarah had to look away, afraid he would see too much, that he would realize how those words struck her. In a deep and painful place, dinner arrived, and the conversation flowed surprisingly naturally between bites. David shared stories about the early years struggling to establish the company, sleeping in the office, eating ramen because every penny needed to be reinvested in the business. Sarah listened, fascinated, realizing that behind the expensive suit and luxury watch was a story of struggle that she understood intimately. He spoke with his hands, wide and expressive gestures that contrasted with his initial composure, and she noticed he was relaxing too, dropping the mask of the successful businessman to show the man underneath. "And you?" David asked, cutting a piece of his filet mignon. "Tell me about you. What do you do when you're not going on blind dates at fancy restaurants?" Ah, there it was, the inevitable question. Sarah felt her stomach tighten, the taste of the shrimp risotto, which was truly exceptional, turning bitter in her mouth. She carefully placed her fork on the plate, buying time while her mind raced. She could lie, invent a more interesting, more palatable life. Say she worked in something glamorous, that her life was simple by choice, not by necessity. But when she looked up and found those dark brown eyes fixed on her, filled with genuine curiosity and no apparent judgment, something inside her broke. Maybe it was the wine. She was already on her second glass, more than she usually drank in an entire month. Maybe it was the exhaustion of always carrying masks, of always pretending everything was fine when she was really drowning. Or maybe it was simply the fact that, for the first time in years, someone was really looking at her, really seeing, and she was tired of being invisible. "I'm not the girl you should be getting to know." The words came out in a hoarse whisper, and she saw confusion pass over his face. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling tears threaten to burn her eyes, but refusing to let them fall. "I'm a single mother, David. I have a 6-year-old daughter. Lily." She paused, waiting, seeing the change in his face, the interest cooling, his eyes searching for the nearest exit, the polite smile that preceded rehearsed apologies. It was what always happened during the rare times she mentioned Lily to any man. But David just watched her, motionless, waiting for her to continue. "I work as a cashier at a supermarket during the day and do data entry at night, from home, after she falls asleep," Sarah continued, her words gaining speed, a desperate urgency to get everything out before she lost her courage. "I live in a 2-room apartment in Brooklyn. Well, technically it's 1.5 rooms, because the kitchen is the size of a closet. My car is 15 years old, and the air conditioning doesn't work. I buy clothes at thrift stores and sometimes skip meals to make sure Lily has everything she needs." Her voice was trembling now, but she couldn't stop. It was like opening a dam. Once opened, everything poured out uncontrollably. I don't have time for fancy restaurants or expensive wines. I know nothing about art or international travel or anything that people in your world talk about. My idea of fun is watching Moana for the 1000th time with my daughter while we eat cheap popcorn. I don't... She swallowed hard, forcing the last words out. I don't belong here. I don't belong to this world. And I'm definitely not the kind of woman that a man like you should be getting to know. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah could hear the murmur of other conversations in the restaurant, the clinking of cutlery against porcelain, someone laughing at a nearby table. Each second felt like an eternity. She kept her eyes fixed on her plate, unable to look at him, unable to see the rejection that would surely be etched on his face. Sarah. His voice was soft but firm. Look at me. She shook her head, feeling a traitorous tear escape and slide down her cheek. What an idiot, a complete idiot. Why had she agreed to this? Why had Jessica convinced her that she deserved this, that she could have this? Sarah, please. This time she felt gentle fingers under her chin, lifting her face. When she finally opened her eyes, the expression on David's face was not what she expected. There was no pity there, no discomfort, no look of someone searching for an excuse to leave. There was something like admiration, respect. Do you think that makes you less interesting to me? He asked, his voice low and intense. That the fact you're a mother, that you work hard, that you sacrifice for someone you love makes you, what, undeserving, less valuable? Sarah blinked, confused. You don't understand. It's not just about having a daughter, it's about everything that comes with it. The time I don't have, the responsibilities, the complications. Men want someone free, available, without baggage. Don't tell me what men want. There was a hint of irritation in his voice now, but not directed at her. Don't put me in the same category as those idiots who can't see the value in something real just because it's not convenient. He leaned back in his chair, running his hand through his hair, messing up the carefully styled strands. For a moment he just looked at her, and Sarah saw something changing behind those eyes, a decision being made, a choice to open up or keep walls up. My mother raised my brother and me alone, David began, his voice softer now, laden with memory. She worked 3 jobs, cleaning in the early morning, then teaching all day, and at night she cleaned offices. I remember waking up at 5 in the morning when I was about 7 and seeing her making our breakfast before heading out for the first shift. She always had deep bags under her eyes, hands cracked from so many cleaning products, but she always had a smile for us. Sarah felt something tighten in her chest, a painful and deep recognition. When I got to college, I got a full scholarship. It was the only way. I saw my classmates complaining about things like my dad only got me a Honda Civic, not the Golf I wanted, David continued, and there was an old bitterness in his words. And there I was, studying from books I borrowed because I didn't have money to buy, eating sandwiches every day. But you know what struck me the most? How some professors, some classmates, looked at me when they found out my story. That look of pity mixed with discomfort, as if poverty were contagious. He took a long sip of wine before continuing, his eyes fixed on some distant point. So I promised myself that if I ever got to where I am now, I would never be that guy. The guy who looks at someone and sees only circumstances, only what's lacking, instead of seeing who the person really is. His eyes returned to Sarah, and the intensity there made her hold her breath. And when I look at you, Sarah, you know what I see. She shook her head, unable to speak. I see a woman who woke up early today, probably tired, and still worked all day smiling at rude customers. I see a mother who loves her daughter so much that she's willing to sacrifice, to become invisible, to fade away, to ensure she has everything. I see someone who had the courage to go out tonight, even knowing she would be out of her comfort zone, because Part of her still believes she deserves a moment of happiness. He leaned forward, taking her hand across the table, his warm fingers enveloping hers. And I see a woman who, when she could have told me a pretty false story, chose the truth, even if it hurt, even knowing I might reject you. Do you know how much courage that takes? Does it require? What does that tell me about who you really are? Sarah felt the tears falling freely now, but they were not tears of sadness or shame. It was something different, something she couldn't name. Relief, perhaps, or gratitude, or simply the devastating effect of being truly seen by someone after so long of being invisible. "You don't have to say that," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You don't have to make me feel better." "I'm not saying it to make you feel better. I'm saying it because it's true." David squeezed her hand gently. "And what about your daughter? Lily, I want to meet her. If you allow me, of course. Not now, not tomorrow, but when you feel it's the right time. Because she isn't a complication, Sarah. She is part of who you are. And I want to know who you are. All of you." Sarah looked at him through her tears, searching for signs of insincerity, for pretty words that meant nothing. But all she saw was sincerity, a vulnerable openness that mirrored her own. He was risking too, she realized. He was laying his cards on the table, betting on her as much as he was asking her to bet on him. "I'm very scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of opening up, of trusting, of believing that this can be real. I've been disappointed before, David. Brutally. The father of Lily. He promised the world, said we would be together, that we would face everything together. And then, when I found out I was pregnant, he just disappeared, moved away, blocked my number, never looked back." David closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, there was anger there, but not at her. "He's an idiot and a coward, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. The point is," Sarah continued, wiping her tears with the napkin, "that I can't afford to believe in empty promises. It's not just about me. I have a daughter who depends on me, who needs stability, not another male figure who will show up and disappear from her life." "I completely understand." David nodded, his expression serious. "And I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. Trust is something that is built, not given freely. What I'm asking for is a chance to prove to you, through actions and not just words, that I see value in you, that I want to be here, to know you, to understand your life. No pressure, no unrealistic expectations, just a chance." Sarah studied him for a long moment. There was something in him, a solidity mixed with vulnerability that resonated with something deep inside her. Maybe it was madness. It probably was. But when was the last time she had done something crazy, something just for her, something that wasn't calculated and safe and predictable? "A chance," she finally repeated, and a small smile touched her lips. "But slowly, okay? I need slow." The smile that lit up David's face was devastating. "Slow is perfect, as slow as you need." The rest of the dinner passed in a completely different atmosphere. The tension had dissipated, replaced by a comfortable intimacy that surprised them both. Sarah found herself genuinely laughing for the first time in months, sharing stories about Lily. How the girl insisted on wearing tutus over any outfit, even her school uniform, or how she had decided she wanted to be a dinosaur veterinarian when she grew up. David listened to every word with genuine attention, asking questions, laughing at the right moments, and Sarah realized he wasn't just being polite. He was truly interested. "She sounds amazing," David said when the waiter brought the dessert. A molten chocolate cake they had, decided to share. Strong and creative like her mother. Sarah felt her face heat up with the compliment. "She is everything to me, literally everything. Every decision I make, every sacrifice, every choice. It all goes through the filter of, is this good for Lily? And tonight, coming here, meeting a stranger from the internet? David asked with a half-smile. How did that pass the filter? Sarah picked up the spoon, cutting into the warm cake and letting the ice cream melt over it. Honestly, it almost didn't. I cancelled 3 times before finally deciding to come. But my friend, Jessica, she's the one taking care of Lily today, made me promise I would come. She said I was forgetting that I'm a person, not just a function. Your friend is wise. David tasted the dessert and closed his eyes appreciatively. And you? Do you agree with her? Sarah considered the question while savoring the hot chocolate mixed with the vanilla ice cream. I think so. But it's hard, you know. When you're a single mum, especially when you're struggling financially, it doesn't feel right to spend time or money on yourself. It always feels selfish, like I'm taking something away from her. But you can't take care of anyone if you don't take care of yourself first, David observed. It's like those safety instructions on airplanes. Put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. It's not selfish, it's survival. Nice theory, Sarah laughed, but there was a sadness in her laughter. In practice, when you have to choose between buying a new pair of shoes for yourself, which are worn out, or paying for your daughter's ballet class, you choose ballet, always. And you should have both, David said, his voice growing more serious. You and Lily, no one should have to make that kind of choice. Sarah shrugged, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. She didn't want him to see her as a charity project, someone who needed to be saved. It's life. A lot of people go through this. I'm not special. I completely disagree. David set his spoon aside, his expression intense. Sarah, listen to me. The fact that a lot of people go through this doesn't make it any less unfair, any less difficult, or you any less deserving of something better. This story of normalizing suffering, of saying, that's just how it is, everyone manages, that only serves to maintain a system that doesn't work. There was passion in his voice now, and Sarah realized she was witnessing something he usually kept hidden. Deep convictions, anger against injustices, a sense of purpose that went beyond making money. Is that why your company shifted its focus to education? She asked softly. Because you want to change the system? David paused as if caught off guard, and then smiled. A genuine and slightly shy smile that made him look years younger. You got me. Yes, that's exactly why. Quality education shouldn't be a privilege for those who can afford expensive schools. Technology can democratize it, making it accessible for any child with a phone or computer. It's my way of giving back, you know? Honoring everything my mum did for me. Sarah felt something expand in her chest. Here was a man who could easily live in a bubble of privilege, only concerned with profits and status, but who chose to use his resources to make a difference. That said more about his character than any pretty words could. That's beautiful, she said, meaning every word. The world needs more people like that. People who remember where they came from and use that as motivation to help others. And you do the same, David pointed out. It may not be through a company or technology, but every day you fight for Lily, every sacrifice you make, you're shaping the future. You're creating a person who will grow up knowing what unconditional love, dedication, and strength are. That has immeasurable value. Sarah felt her eyes sting again. When was the last time someone recognized her work as a mother as something valuable, important? Usually people either completely ignored it or looked at her with pity, as if she had ruined her life by having a child as a single parent. Thank you, she whispered, her voice choked. You have no idea how much it means to hear that. David reached his hand across the table again, and this time she intertwined her fingers with his without hesitation. They stayed like that for a moment, just looking at each other across the candles that illuminated the table, and Sarah felt something shift within her, a wall beginning to crack, a possibility opening up. The moment was broken by Sarah's phone vibrating insistently in her bag. She jumped, immediately alert. "Sorry, I need to check. It could be about Lily." "Of course, go ahead," David said, releasing her hand. Sarah took out her phone and relaxed upon seeing it was just a message from Jessica. "How's it going? Is he cute? Lily is sleeping. Everything is calm here. Enjoy." She smiled, quickly typing a response. "Better than I expected. Much better. Thank you for everything." "Is everything okay?" David asked when she put her phone away. "Yes, just Jessica being curious." Sarah laughed. "She'll want every detail when I get home." "And what are you going to tell her?" There was a vulnerability in the question, as if her opinion really mattered to him. Sarah considered for a moment, looking at the man in front of her. So different from what she expected, so much more real and complex than a profile on a dating app could convey. "I'll tell her I met someone. Interesting. Someone who made me feel seen for the first time in a long time. Someone I would like to get to know better." The smile that lit up David's face was radiant. "I would also really like to get to know you better, Sarah, very much." They finished dessert amidst conversations about everything and nothing, favorite books. She loved romances, he preferred biographies, songs that marked their lives. She confessed a secret love for country music. He admitted to an emo phase in his teenage years that made them both laugh until their stomachs hurt. Places they dreamed of visiting. She wanted to see snow. He dreamed of Japan. It was easy, comfortable, like talking to an old friend, but with an underlying current of attraction that made the air between them feel electrically charged. When the waiter brought the bill, Sarah instinctively reached for her bag, but David was quicker, placing his black card on the tray before she could protest. "David, I can pay my part," she started, but he gently interrupted her. "I know you can, but I invited you, and I would really like to pay. Please, let me do this." There was a way he asked, not as if she were incapable or needed charity, but as a genuine gesture of courtesy that made Sarah nod. "Okay, but next time," she paused, realizing what she had said. "I mean, if there is a next time." "There will be," David said confidently, but then his expression softened. "If you want, of course, I definitely do." "I want to as well," Sarah admitted, feeling butterflies in her stomach that she thought had died years ago. They left the restaurant together, and Sarah realized it was already past 11 at night. Where had the time gone? It felt like they had only sat down a few minutes ago, but 3.5 hours had passed in the blink of an eye. The March night air was cool, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of jasmine from nearby gardens. Maple Street was quiet at this hour, with only a few cars passing occasionally, couples walking hand in hand, the city showing its more romantic side. "Where did you park?" David asked, putting his hands in his pockets as if trying to stop himself from reaching for her. 3 blocks from here," Sarah admitted, a bit embarrassed. "I couldn't find a spot closer. I'll walk you to your car." It wasn't a question, but it also wasn't presumptuous. It was just caring. They walked in comfortable silence, their arms occasionally brushing against each other, each brief contact sending little waves of warmth through Sarah. She was hyper-aware of everything, the way the sound of her heels echoed on the sidewalk, his breath, the scent of his woody perfume mixed with something that was just him. When they arrived at the Honda Civic, parked under a flickering streetlight, Sarah felt a pang of embarrassment. Next to David's silver BMW that she had seen parked in front of the restaurant, her car looked even older and more worn out. "This is my carriage," she said, trying to make light of the situation. "It's not much, but it gets me where I need to go." "It's perfect," David said, and he seemed sincere. "Do you take care of it? Does it run well?" Sarah blinked, surprised by the practical question. "Yes, I do regular maintenance. Well, as much as I can afford. The mechanic down the street gives me a discount because I'm a long-time customer." "Good. Safety is important." David stepped a little closer, and Sarah felt her heart race. "Sarah, I really enjoyed tonight, much more than I expected." "Me too," she admitted, looking up to meet his eyes. In the dim light of the street lamp, he looked even more handsome, and she felt a wave of desire that caught her off guard. It had been so long since she had felt this, that intense physical attraction mixed with emotional connection. "Can I call you tomorrow?" David asked, his voice low and husky. "Yes, I would like that." They stood there for a moment, the tension between them almost palpable. Sarah wondered if he was going to kiss her, half hoping he would, half terrified. But David, sensing her hesitation, simply took her hand and brought it to his lips, gently kissing her fingers. "Good night, Sarah. Drive safely." "Good night, David." She got into the car, her hands trembling as she put the key in the ignition. Through the rearview mirror, she saw him waiting until the engine started, on the third try, as always, and only then walked toward his own car. All the way home, Sarah couldn't stop smiling. Sarah arrived home shortly after midnight, finding Jessica on the couch watching a series on Hulu with the volume low. Her friend jumped up as soon as she heard the key in the door, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "So, how was it? Tell me everything," Jessica whispered loudly, aware that Lily was sleeping in the next room. Sarah leaned against the door, still holding her bag against her chest, and sighed. "Jessica, it was amazing. He is different, completely different." "Different how? Different good or different weird?" Jessica crossed her arms, her protective instincts on high alert. She had known Sarah for 15 years since school and had seen her friend get hurt by Lily's father. She wasn't going to let anyone hurt her again. "Different good. Very good." Sarah walked over to the couch and flopped down onto it, taking off her heels with a sigh of relief. Her feet throbbed, but she barely noticed. "He listened to me, Jess. Really listened. He didn't make that face of, 'Wow, what a sad story,' when I told him about Lily. In fact, he understood." Jessica sat down next to her, her expression softening. "You told him about her? On the first date?" "I had to tell him. I couldn't sit there pretending to be someone I'm not, you know. And when I told him, I expected him to make an excuse and run away. But—" Sarah shook her head, still processing. "He stayed, and not only that, he shared his own story. His mom raised him alone, too. He gets it, Jessica. He really gets it. And is he handsome? Rich? Was the suit real or rented?" The questions came out in a rush, making Sarah laugh. "Yes, yes, and definitely real. He's the CEO of a tech company, has money, but he's not snobby, you know? He's polite, thoughtful. And when he talks about his mom, about his work, his eyes light up in a way—" Sarah sighed again, bringing her hands to her face. "Oh my God, Jess, I'm in trouble." "In trouble how?" "In trouble as in, I like him, a lot, and that scares me." Sarah let her hands fall, looking at her friend with wide, vulnerable eyes. "What if it goes wrong? What if it's too good to be true? What if Lily gets attached to him and he disappears like Mark?" Jessica took Sarah's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Or what if it goes right? What if it's real? What if he's the person you deserve and have been waiting for?" "I don't know if I believe in the right person anymore, Jess. I think that fantasy died when I was 8 months pregnant, and Mark changed his number without telling me." "Look, Mark was a coward and a jerk," Jessica said bluntly, as always. "But you can't let what that idiot did define the rest of your life. You're 32, Sarah, not 80. You still have a whole life ahead of you." Sarah knew her friend was right. but the fear was paralyzing. I'm going to see him again. He's going to call tomorrow. Great. Just don't cancel this time. I swear if you cancel last minute, again, I'll kill you. Jessica got up, grabbing her bag. Lily has been sleeping since 9. She ate well, brushed her teeth, made me read 3 stories. Oh, and she said that when she grows up, she's going to marry Flash. Sarah laughed, feeling her heart warm at the thought of her daughter. Last week it was Spider-Man. Next month it'll be someone else. She's adorable and way too smart for her age. Jessica walked to the door, but paused before leaving. Sarah, I know you're scared, but promise me you'll try, that you'll give yourself a chance to be happy? I promise, Sarah said, and she meant it. After Jessica left, Sarah went to the small room she shared with Lily. The single bed took up almost all the space, surrounded by drawings taped to the walls. Princesses, unicorns. Sarah Johnson looked at the walls, adorned with flowers, drawn with childlike care. In the corner, an old dresser that Sarah had painted white held their clothes. It was cramped, not ideal, but it was theirs. Lily slept soundly, her light brown hair spread across the pillow. The teddy bear she received for her 4th birthday clutched tightly to her chest. Sarah carefully sat on the edge of the bed, just watching her daughter sleep, a habit she had developed in the early months of the girl's life and had never been able to shake. There was something profoundly comforting in watching Lily's small chest rise and fall rhythmically, knowing that despite everything, she was safe, loved, and cared for. "Mommy met someone today," Sarah whispered, knowing her daughter couldn't hear her, but needing to say it anyway. "Someone who might be special, and I'm so scared, my love. So scared of ruining everything, of exposing you to more pain. But I'm also hopeful, and it's been so long since I felt hope." She gently stroked Lily's hair, then stood up and went to take a shower, letting the warm water wash away the day. In the tiny shower of the apartment, she finally allowed herself to process everything. The way David had looked at her, as if she were interesting and valuable, the sensation of his fingers intertwined with hers, the soft kiss on her hand that had sent shivers throughout her body. The next morning, Sarah woke up to Lily jumping on the bed. "Mommy, Mommy, wake up, it's Saturday. Aunt Kate said we could make pancakes." Sarah slowly opened her eyes, blinking against the sunlight streaming through the thin curtain. Her body ached, the heels from the night before had taken their toll, but the smile on Lily's face was worth every ache in her feet. "Good morning, my love. What time is it?" "It's 8 o'clock. I already washed my face and brushed my teeth all by myself," Lily proudly announced, and Sarah smiled, pulling her daughter into a tight hug. "What a big and responsible girl. I'm so proud of you." They went to the tiny kitchen, where Sarah began preparing pancakes, while Lily chattered about the dreams she had. Something about flying unicorns and an ice cream castle. Sarah listened somewhat distractedly, her thoughts constantly drifting back to David. He said he would call today. Would it be in the morning? In the afternoon? What if he didn't call? What if last night had just been politeness, and today, in the light of day, he realized he didn't want to get involved with a broken single mom? The phone rang at 10:30 in the morning, and Sarah's heart skipped a beat when she saw his name on the screen. "Lily, can you watch a cartoon for a bit? Mommy needs to take a call." "Okay, Mommy." Lily was already engrossed in her favorite show, a bowl of pancakes with honey in her lap. Sarah walked to the small hallway, her heart racing. She took a deep breath before answering. "Hello? Sarah? Good morning. I hope I'm not calling too early." David's voice sounded even better over the phone, deep and warm. No, we've been awake for hours. Lily doesn't believe in the concept of sleeping in on weekends." David laughed, and the sound made something melt inside her. "Kids are like that. My nephew is the same. He's the family's official alarm clock. How are you? Did you sleep well? I slept, eventually. I spent some time thinking about last night. Me too. Actually, I didn't get much sleep. I kept replaying our conversation, trying to remember every detail. There was a vulnerability in his voice that made Sarah smile. Look, I know it's last minute, but are you and Lily doing anything today? Sarah paused, surprised. You want to see us? Today? Only if you want to, of course. No pressure at all. But there's a park in Brooklyn, Central Park, and I thought maybe Lily would like it. We could get some ice cream, let her play a bit. But seriously, if it's too soon, I completely understand. David, Sarah interrupted him, a smile growing on her face. We would love to. The silence on the other end of the line was filled with palpable relief. Really? Are you sure? Yes, really, but I need to warn you, Lily is intense. She talks non-stop, asks millions of questions, and is in a phase of wanting to show off her cartwheels all the time. Sounds perfect, David said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. How about noon? I can pick you up? Sarah hesitated, letting him see the building where she lived, the tiny apartment, the raw reality of her life. It was a big step, but he already knew everything, didn't he? And she had promised herself to be honest, not to pretend to be someone she wasn't. Okay, noon is great. I'll send you my address. After she hung up, Sarah stood in the hallway for a moment trying to process what she had just agreed to. She was going to introduce Lily to David today. Hours after their first meeting, it was crazy, it was rushed, it went against all the sensible relationship rules she had set for herself. But it also felt right. Lily, come here for a second, she called, returning to the living room. Lily appeared immediately, honey stuck in the corner of her mouth. What is it, Mommy? Sarah knelt down to be at her daughter's level, holding her tiny hands. Do you remember that Mommy went out to meet a new friend yesterday? Uh-huh. Aunt Kate said you went to a fancy restaurant and had Italian food. Sarah smiled. It was Italian, but yes. Well, this friend, his name is David, and he asked if we would like to go to the park today. Get some ice cream, play a little. Do you want to meet him? Lily's eyes widened. Really? A friend of yours? Is he nice? I think so. But if you meet him and don't like him, or if you feel uncomfortable, you tell me, okay? And we'll leave. Are you in control here, okay? Lily considered for a moment, her expression too serious for a 6-year-old. Then she smiled, that toothless grin that melted Sarah's heart every day. Okay, Mommy, but does he like strawberry ice cream? Because if he doesn't, I don't know if we can be friends. Sarah laughed, pulling her daughter into a tight hug. We'll find out together, okay? The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. Sarah tried on 3 different outfits before settling on a simple floral cotton dress that Jessica had given her for her last birthday. Lily insisted on wearing her pink tutu over her jeans and a unicorn. Tiara and Sarah decided not to argue about it. She would let Lily be exactly who she was. At exactly noon, the doorbell rang. Sarah took a deep breath, squeezed Lily's hand, and went to open the door. David was there, casually dressed in jeans and a light blue shirt, very different from the suited executive of the night before. He looked younger, more approachable, and he was holding a small bouquet of sunflowers in one hand and a colorful stuffed unicorn in the other. Hi, he said with a slightly nervous smile. The flowers are for you, and I know it's last minute, but I thought Lily might like this. He showed the unicorn, his expression hopeful and uncertain. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. He hadn't brought something generic at the last minute. He had thought of them, he had put in the effort. But before she could respond, Lily let out a squeal of joy and practically jumped to grab the unicorn. A unicorn! Mommy, look, he brought a unicorn. It's purple and has stars." David knelt down to her level, his smile now genuine and relaxed. "Hi, Lily. I'm David, your mom's friend. I thought you and this unicorn matched. You're wearing a beautiful tiara." "Thank you. I wear it every day. Mommy says one day it will get stuck on my head." David laughed, a genuine laugh that lit up his whole face. "Well, it's a very special tiara. I think it's worth wearing every day." Sarah watched the interaction, her heart tightening in her chest. The ease with which he spoke to Lily, without that forced condescension many adults used with children, without discomfort or rush. He was truly present, truly interested. "Shall we?" David stood up, looking at Sarah with an expression that mixed nervousness and hope. "My car is parked downstairs." They descended the 3 flights of stairs of the building without an elevator, Lily bouncing down 2 steps at a time while chattering non-stop about all her stuffed unicorns, about how this new one was special because it had purple stars, about how she was going to name it Magic Star. "How many floors does your building have?" David asked casually as they went down. 5. We live on the 3rd. It's great exercise," Sarah tried to joke, but there was a defensiveness in her voice that she couldn't completely hide. David looked at her, and there was understanding in his eyes. "My mum lived in a 4-story building without an elevator. Even today she has athlete's legs because of it." It was a simple comment, but it dissipated the tension Sarah hadn't even realized she was carrying. He wasn't judging, he was just talking. David's car, a silver BMW X5, was parked right in front. Lily suddenly stopped, her eyes wide. "Wow, Mommy, look at that big car. There's even room for 3 unicorns." "Actually, there's room for 7, David said with a smile, opening the back door. "Let's see if you can reach the seatbelt, or if you need help." "I can do it myself. Mommy taught me," Lily announced proudly, climbing into the car, with the unicorn clutched against her chest. Sarah helped her, but Lily really managed to buckle herself in, just needing a small adjustment that Sarah quickly made. When she turned around, David was holding the passenger door open for her, that same courteous gesture from the night before. "Thank you," she murmured, sliding into the car. The interior smelled of new leather and his masculine scent, and it was so different from her. Honda Civic that smelled of strawberry lip balm, that Lily kept dropping on the seats, that Sarah felt momentarily out of place, as if she were in another world. During the drive to the park, Lily didn't stop talking for a second. She told about her teacher, about her best friend Lucy, who had just lost her front tooth, about how she was also about to lose hers, and the tooth fairy was going to bring $5, because that was the current price, not $2, like it used to be. "Inflation has even affected the tooth fairy," David commented to Sarah in a low voice, making her laugh. "The economy is tough for everyone," she replied in the same conspiratorial tone. Central Park was surprisingly crowded for a Saturday morning. Families spread out on the lawns, children ran through the playgrounds, couples walked along the shaded trails, the air smelled of freshly cut grass and cotton candy from a nearby cart. "Ice cream!" Lily shouted as soon as she got out of the car, pointing to the ice cream shop across the street. "Hold on, little one," Sarah laughed, taking her daughter's hand. "Let's cross carefully first." David automatically positioned himself on the other side of Lily, creating a protective barrier between her and the street. It was an unconscious, natural gesture, and Sarah felt something tighten in her chest. Protection, care, things that she and Lily rarely received from anyone other than themselves. At the ice cream shop, Lily spent a full 10 minutes trying to decide between strawberry, Belgian chocolate and pistachio, asking to sample each one 3 times. While the attendant smiled patiently, she finally decided on strawberry with colorful sprinkles. "And for you?" David asked Sarah while Lily was already attacking her ice cream. sitting on a nearby bench. No need, Sarah, David gently interrupted her. What flavor do you want? There was something firm in his tone, not controlling, but determined. He wasn't going to accept her refusal of something as simple as ice cream. Sarah sighed, looking at the options. When was the last time she had ice cream? Months, perhaps? It always seemed like an unnecessary expense, something she could easily forgo. Dark chocolate with orange, she finally said, choosing her favorite. David ordered the same for himself, plus a pistachio one to try, and when they went to join Lily on the bench, Sarah let the first spoonful melt in her mouth, closing her eyes appreciatively. It was delicious, creamy, and rich, worth every penny she normally wouldn't spend on herself. Good? David asked, watching her with a smile. Very good, she admitted. Lily, having already devoured half of her ice cream, was telling David about every detail of school. Her teacher who wore funny glasses, the boy who always pulled the girl's hair. How she was the best in her class at math, but didn't like English much because she had to write a lot and her hand got tired. Math is really cool, David enthusiastically agreed. You know, my job is basically math all day. Computer programming is like math with words. Lily's eyes widened. Really? Like video games? Exactly like video games. In fact, I've made a few games too. Nothing too big, but small educational games for kids to learn while having fun. Can you show me? Lily asked, already bouncing with excitement on the bench. Issa, calm down. Let David finish his ice cream. Sarah gently reprimanded her, but David shook his head. No problem. Come here, I'll show you. He took out his phone and knelt beside Lily, showing her some apps while explaining how they worked. Sarah watched, her heart expanding and contracting at the same time. It was so easy to see them like this, so natural, and that terrified her. Because what if all of this was too good to be true? What if she let Lily get attached, let herself get attached, and then he realized that this wasn't what he wanted? That the reality of being with a single mother, with all the complications and responsibilities, was very different from a beautiful Saturday in the park. "Mommy, can I go on the swing?" Lily asked, interrupting Sarah's thoughts. "Yes, sweetheart, but stay where I can see you, okay?" "Okay." Lily ran off, the stuffed unicorn still clutched in one hand, the rest of her ice cream in the other. Sarah and David walked to a bench closer to the playground, where they could keep an eye on Lily as she climbed the structures with the fearless agility of small children. "She's amazing," David said, sitting next to Sarah. "Smart, curious, confident. You've done a wonderful job with her. There are days I don't feel like I'm doing a good job," Sarah admitted, watching Lily make instant friends with another girl on the slide. "There are days I wake up and think, I'm messing everything up. She deserves so much more than I can give." "Sarah, look at her." David pointed to where Lily was laughing as she spun on a merry-go-round with her new friends. "She's happy, secure, loved. You're giving her the most important thing. Not material things, but presence, unconditional love, emotional stability. That's worth more than any expensive toy or big house." Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. "You don't know us for even 24 hours. How can you be so sure? Because I see it in the way she looks at you, how she touches you, how she talks about you. She adores you, and more importantly, she trusts you completely. That doesn't happen by accident, Sarah. It's built day by day with patience and love." A tear slipped out and Sarah quickly wiped it away. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get emotional like this." "You don't need to apologize." David hesitated for a moment, then gently took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Can I ask you a question?" "Sure." "Her father, is he around? Is there any kind of involvement?" Sarah shook her head, the familiar old pain settling in her chest. "No. When I found out I was pregnant, I was 25. I had been dating Mark for 2 years, thought he was the love of my life, that we would get married, have a family, when I told him about the pregnancy." She paused, taking a deep breath. "At first he pretended to be happy. He said he would take responsibility, that we would be together. But in the following months, he became more distant, more absent. When I was 8 months pregnant, he just disappeared." "Disappeared how?" "Moved to another city without telling me, blocked my number, my social media, everything. Later, I found out from mutual friends that he got a job in Chicago and decided to start over, as if I and the baby on the way were just a bad chapter he could close and forget." David's hand tightened around hers. "Did he try to reach out afterward? Does he pay child support?" Sarah laughed bitterly. "I tried to reach out several times. I sent messages through mutual friends, tried to contact him at his new job. He always had an excuse. As for child support, technically he should pay, but he always finds ways to evade it. He changes jobs constantly, claims he has no money, hires better lawyers than mine. It's a battle I've grown tired of fighting. I decided it was better to focus on building a life for myself and Lily than to waste energy trying to force someone who clearly doesn't want to be present." "And Lily, does she ask about him?" "Sometimes, especially when she sees other kids with their parents. I've always been honest, within what's appropriate for her age. I tell her that Daddy can't be here right now, but that she has a mommy who loves her more than anything in the world. When she's older, if she wants to look for him, I'll support her, but for now." Sarah looked at her daughter, who was now hanging upside down on the playground bars, laughing. "For now, we're doing just fine, the two of us. You two are more than fine. You are amazing." David was quiet for a moment, as if processing everything. "Can I tell you something? Promise you won't. Think I'm being condescending or paternalistic. I promise to try," Sarah said with a small smile. "I admire you immensely. The courage you have, the strength, the dedication. It's inspiring. Many people in your situation would have given up, taken easy shortcuts, become bitter. But you woke up and chose to fight every day, not for yourself, but for her. That's heroism, Sarah. Real heroism, not the kind from movies, but the kind that matters." Sarah didn't know what to say. No one had ever called her a hero. Most of the time, she felt like a fraud, as if she were just improvising and hoping not to mess everything up. "I don't feel like a hero," she finally said. "I feel like a normal person trying to survive." "That's what makes it real," David replied. "Real heroes never think they are heroes. They just do what needs to be done." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, hands still intertwined, watching Lily play. The March sun shone through the leaves of the trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on the ground. Around them, life was happening, children laughing, parents chatting, dogs running, the world spinning, in its chaotic and beautiful normality. "David," Sarah said softly. "Yes?" "Thank you for being here, for not running away yesterday when I told you about Lily, for seeing us. Really." He turned to look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her catch her breath. "Sarah, I'm not going to pretend I know how this is going to be, what will happen between us. But what I do know is that I want to find out. I want to be here, to know you and Lily, to be part of your lives if you let me. And it's not charity or pity or anything else you might be thinking. It's because last night, when you sat in front of me and were brutally honest about who you are, I saw someone real, someone genuine. And I want more of that, more of you." Before Sarah could respond, Lily came running, her cheeks flushed from playing, her hair sticking to her sweaty forehead. "Mom, David, I made a friend. Her name is Julia, and she's 6 too, and she said I can go to her house to play if you let me, and she has a dog named—" "Popcorn!" Sarah laughed, the intense moment broken by her daughter's exuberance. "That's great, sweetheart. Where's her mom? I'll need to exchange numbers with her." As Sarah went to meet Julia's mom and exchange contact information, David stayed with Lily, and she bombarded him with questions about everything, about programming, how games were made, if he had a dog. No, but he always wanted one. If he liked strawberry ice cream, yes, a lot. If he thought unicorns really existed, he said maybe not in this world, but definitely in other imaginary worlds. When Sarah returned, she found the two sitting on the bench, Lily drawing something on David's phone with total concentration while he watched with a smile on his face. "What are you doing?" she asked, sitting down on the other side of Lily. "David has a drawing app, and I'm making a unicorn. Want to see?" Lily turned the phone, proudly showing a colorful and chaotic drawing that could be a unicorn or a mix of various mythical creatures. "It's beautiful, my love." They spent the next 2 hours in the park. David pushed Lily on the swing until his arms hurt, built castles in the sandbox that she immediately destroyed with mischievous laughter, and even tried to go down the slide with her, barely fitting in the structure made for kids, which made both Sarah and Lily laugh until they cried. As it began to get late, around 3 in the afternoon, Lily started to get tired, her steps losing the frantic energy of the previous hours. Sarah noticed the signs, her daughter rubbing her eyes, yawning, becoming clingy. "I think someone needs a nap," Sarah said gently, stroking Lily's sweaty hair. "I'm not sleepy," Lily protested, but her eyes were already half closed. "How about we take you home?" David suggested. "You can sleep in the car. It's really comfortable." On the way back, Lily fell asleep before they even left the parking lot, her head tilted to the side, her stuffed unicorn pressed against her chest. Sarah looked back several times, adjusting her seatbelt, gently stroking her daughter's hair with a tenderness that made David's heart tighten. "She sleeps anywhere when she's tired," Sarah explained softly. "It's a blessing and a curse. A blessing because it makes it easier when we need to go out. A curse because sometimes she falls asleep in the car and then doesn't want to sleep at night. My nephew is the same way. My brother always complains about it." David drove carefully, avoiding potholes and sudden stops so as not to wake Lily. When they arrived at Sarah's building, David turned off the car, but neither of them moved immediately. Lily continued to sleep soundly in the back seat, and there was something intimate, almost domestic about that moment. The three of them together in the quiet car, the afternoon sun casting a golden glow through the windows. "I should take her upstairs," Sarah said, but she didn't make a move to get out. "Sarah," David began, turning to look at her. "I know it's early, and I don't want to pressure you, but can I see you again? Soon?" Sarah bit her lip, 1,000 thoughts racing through her mind. It was too soon. She barely knew him, but at the same time, in the last 24 hours, she had. Marina felt more seen, more valued, more alive than she had in the last 6 years. "Yes," she finally replied, "but David, I need you to understand one thing. Lily, she is my priority, always. If at any moment you feel that this is not what you want, that it's too much, that it's too complicated, I need you to be honest with me, quickly, because I can recover from a broken heart, but I don't want her to get attached to someone who is going to disappear." "I understand," David said seriously, "and I promise that if at any moment I feel I can't be present in the way you both deserve, I will be honest. But Sarah, I need you to understand too, I didn't enter this lightly. I know what I'm doing, and I want to do this." Sarah held his gaze for a long moment, searching for signs of doubt or uncertainty. All she saw was sincerity and determination. "Okay," she said softly, "but slowly, one step at a time." "One step at a time," he agreed, and then, hesitantly, leaned in and kissed her cheek. A gentle, chaste kiss that still sent waves of warmth through Sarah's body. She got out of the car in a state of semi-shock, and when David insisted on carrying Lily up the stairs for her, Sarah didn't protest. There was something deeply moving about seeing that tall, strong man carrying her sleeping daughter so carefully, as if she were made of glass. Inside the apartment, he gently placed Lily on the bed, waiting while Sarah took off the girl's shoes and covered her with the light blanket. Lily murmured something about unicorns, but didn't wake up. "Thank you," Sarah whispered as they left the room, leaving the door ajar. "For today, for everything." "It was one of the best days I've had in a long time," David replied, and there was a vulnerability in his voice that made her realize he was also taking a risk. He was also scared. After he left, Sarah let herself fall onto the worn-out sofa, her eyes fixed on the ceiling with water stains that she never had the money to fix. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. "So, I need details." Sarah smiled, typing back, "It was perfect, and that scares me." The following week passed in a strange haze. Sarah worked her shifts at the supermarket, dealt with Lily's needs, maintained the routine that sustained them. But now there was something different. Messages from David punctuating her days. Good morning texts, with funny pictures he found. Questions about how her day was going. Long conversations at night after Lily was asleep, when Sarah finally had time for herself. They saw each other 2 more times that week. Once for a quick coffee during Sarah's lunch break. She only had 40 minutes, but David showed up at the bakery near the supermarket with sandwiches and juice, and they talked as if they had all the time in the world. Another time the following weekend, when they took Lily to the zoo, and the girl wouldn't stop talking about the penguins for 3 straight days. But on Monday of the 3rd week, everything changed. Sarah was at the register, scanning groceries on autopilot, while her mind wandered, thinking about David, about the dinner they had planned for Friday, when Jessica could watch Lily, about how her life had become so different in such a short time. That's when her supervisor, Mark, appeared beside her register with a strange expression on his face. "Sarah, I need to talk to you. Can you ask Jessica to cover your last 15 minutes? Sarah's heart raced. In 7 years working there, Mark had never asked to speak with her off the clock. "Is everything okay? Did I do something wrong?" "No, it's not that. Just come with me to the office when you finish with this customer, okay?" Sarah finished ringing up the lady with trembling hands. Her brain was already calculating how much she had saved, how long she could support herself and Lily if they fired her, how she was going to pay next month's rent. In Mark's cramped office, filled with papers and the smell of stale coffee, he gestured for her to sit down. His expression was serious, but not angry, confused perhaps. "Sarah, do you know someone named David Cruz?" The world stopped. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Yes. Why?" Mark sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Because he just bought the supermarket chain, all of it. The official news will come out tomorrow, but it's already circulating among management, and there's more. His company also acquired that startup where you do freelance typing work. Tech, right?" Sarah felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her. "What? No, it can't be. It has to be a coincidence. It has to be. It's not a coincidence, Sarah. It's the same guy, David Cruz, CEO of Cruz Tech Solutions. He's expanding the company's portfolio, investing in different areas." Mark looked at her with something resembling pity. You know him personally?" Sarah's voice faltered. Her mind was racing, trying to process. Did David know? Did he know where she worked? Of course he did. She had told him on their first date. But he hadn't mentioned anything about buying the company. Nothing about her being technically his employee now. We're dating. We met a few weeks ago." Mark let out a low whistle. "Look, Sarah, it's none of my business what's going on in your personal life, but you need to be careful. Situations like this can be complicated. conflict of interest, you know, and people talk. I've already heard 2 comments today suggesting that you got the job because, well, you understand. The humiliation burned through Sarah like acid. I've worked here for 7 years. 7 years, Mark, long before I met David. I know that. You're one of the best employees I have. But people don't know the details, and they love gossip. He sighed again. I'm just warning you, okay? Be careful. Sarah left the office in shock, her legs barely supporting her. She finished her shift mechanically, smiling at customers, ringing up purchases, doing everything on autopilot while her mind screamed. He knew. He had to know. It couldn't be a coincidence that he bought exactly the 2 places where she worked. But why? Why hadn't he told her? And more importantly, what else was he hiding? When she got home that night, after picking up Lily from school and making dinner and helping with homework and giving her a bath and putting her to bed, Sarah finally had a moment to breathe, and that was when the anger came, replacing the shock. She grabbed her phone and called David. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm and cheerful. Sarah, hi, I was just thinking about you. How was... You knew. Her voice was cold, sharp as glass. You knew where I worked and bought the company anyway. You bought both companies where I work. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When David finally spoke, his voice was careful, controlled. Sarah, I can explain. You can explain. You can explain how you forgot to mention you were buying my workplace, how you didn't think it was relevant to tell me. Tears were falling now, tears of anger and humiliation and betrayal. You made a fool of me, David. You made me think this was real, that you saw me as an equal when in fact you were my boss all along. It wasn't like that. Sarah, please let me see you. Let me explain in person. No, I don't want to see you. I don't want your explanations. Her voice broke. Do you know what people are saying at work? That I got the job because I'm dating the owner, as if I hadn't worked hard for 7 years, as if I didn't deserve to be there. You destroyed my credibility, my reputation, everything. Sarah, I never wanted... It doesn't matter what you wanted. What matters is what you did. She wiped her tears angrily. I trusted you. I let you meet my daughter, and you were lying this whole time. I wasn't lying. The acquisitions were already in process before I met you. I couldn't talk about them publicly until they were finalized. And when I realized you worked there, it was too late to back out. Too late to back out. Sarah laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. But not too late to tell me, to warn me, to give me the choice to continue this knowing the situation. You're right, David said, and there was defeat in his voice. You're completely right. I should have told you. I was scared. Scared that you would think exactly what you're thinking now, that this was some kind of power play or manipulation. And it wasn't? The words came out bitter. No, Sarah, for God's sake, do you really think I would orchestrate all this? That I would buy companies just to, what, impress you, control you? That makes no sense. I don't know what makes sense anymore, Sarah shouted, then lowered her voice, remembering that Lily was sleeping in the next room. I don't know what's real and what's not. You appeared in my life like a charming prince, saying all the right things, making all the right gestures, and now I find out you have power over my livelihood, over my ability to take care of my daughter. How can I trust you? How do I know anything between us is genuine when there's this absurd inequality of power? Because I love you. The words came from David in a desperate whisper. I love you, Sarah. I know it's too soon, that it will sound crazy, but it's true. I fell for you at that first dinner when you were brutally honest about your life. I fell harder when I saw you with Lily, when I saw the strength you have, the dignity, and every day since then has only deepened that. It has nothing to do with work or money or power. has to do with you being the most real and incredible person I've ever met." Sarah felt like she had been punched in the stomach. Part of her wanted to believe, wanted desperately to believe. But the part that had been destroyed by Mark, that had learned not to trust pretty words, that part was screaming alarms. "You can't tell me that now," she whispered, tears falling freely. "You can't use this as an excuse or distraction. You lied by omission, David. You had dozens of opportunities to tell me and chose not to. That breaks trust, and without trust, we have nothing. So what do you want me to do?" His voice was broken now, vulnerable. "Tell me what to do to fix this. Anything." "I don't know," Sarah admitted, running her hand through her hair in frustration. "I need time. I need space to think, to process all of this. And you need to decide what's more important, your pride in winning me over or respecting the fact that this situation is impossible for me while you're my boss." "I'll request your transfer to another department," David said immediately, "or you can work directly at TexTech. Full-time if you want, with a better salary. Or I'll reverse the acquisitions. I don't know, Stop." Sarah interrupted him. "You can't just buy solutions for this. You can't use your money and power to make problems disappear. That's exactly the issue, David. You live in a world where everything can be fixed with money and influence. I live in a world where reputation and credibility are all I have. And you just put both at risk." The silence that followed was heavy. David was loaded with everything that wasn't being said. "I'm so sorry," he finally said, his voice hoarse. "I truly am, Sarah. You and Lily deserve so much better than this." "Yes, we do," Sarah agreed, wiping her tears. "I need to go. Good night, David." She hung up before he could respond, before he could say anything else that would make her resolve waver. Then she let herself fall onto the couch and cried for everything she had gained and lost so quickly, for Lily, who had become attached to David and would now have to understand why he wasn't coming to visit them anymore, for herself and the naivety of believing she could have something good. The next few days were torture. David tried calling several times, but Sarah didn't answer. He sent messages, long, sincere, desperate, but she read them and didn't respond. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know what to say, how to explain that every fiber of her being wanted to run back to him, but her brain, her experience, her need to protect herself and Lily wouldn't allow it. At work, she kept her head down, ignoring the curious glances and the whispers that stopped when she passed by. Mark was right. People were talking, and the more she tried to ignore it, the more aware she became of every gaze, every pause in conversation. It was Jessica, her co-worker at the register for 5 years, who finally had the courage to confront her directly. During lunch break, she sat next to Sarah in the cramped break room and said bluntly, "Is it true you're dating the new owner?" Sarah paused, the cheese sandwich halfway to her mouth. "I was. I'm not anymore." "Oh." Jessica was quiet for a moment. "People are talking, you know, saying you got special treatment, that maybe your always approved days off, your shift swaps." "All of that happened before I met him," Sarah said, her voice harsh. "All of it. I've been working here for 7 years, Jessica. 7 years waking up at 5 in the morning, taking 2 buses, working even when sick because I can't lose a day. Do you think I need to sleep with someone to get a deserved day off?" Jessica had the decency to look embarrassed. "No, of course not. I'm sorry, Sarah, I just thought you'd want to know what they're saying." "Thanks," Sarah said with no real gratitude in her voice. She couldn't finish the sandwich, her stomach too knotted. Lily was also feeling the change. She constantly asked about David, when they would see him again, if he was busy, if something had happened. Sarah tried to explain in an age-appropriate way, saying that sometimes adults needed time apart, but she could see the confusion and hurt in her daughter's eyes. "Did I do something wrong?" Lily asked one night, her voice small and scared. "Does David not like us anymore?" Sarah's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. She pulled Lily into her lap, holding her tightly. "No, my love. You didn't do anything wrong, nothing. This is adult stuff, complicated and annoying, but it has nothing to do with you." "But I miss him," Lily sobbed against Sarah's shoulder. "He was nice. He listened to me and played with me, and I thought he was going to stay." "I know, my love. I know." Sarah kissed the top of her daughter's head, her own tears falling silently. "I miss him too." And she did. God, how she did. She missed the good morning texts, the long conversations at night, the way he looked at her as if she were precious. She missed having someone to share the weight with, someone who asked how her day was and really wanted to know. She missed the hope, the possibility that life could be more than just surviving. It was Jessica who finally forced her to confront everything. She showed up at the apartment on a Friday night with a bottle of cheap wine and a determined expression. "Lily is with my mum tonight," she announced, entering uninvited. "We're going to talk. For real. No avoiding or changing the subject." Sarah sighed but didn't protest. Maybe she needed this, someone to force her to process everything out loud. 2 glasses of wine later, Sarah had spilled everything. The discovery about the companies, the fight, David's declarations of love, the silence since then. "So let me see if I got this right," Jessica said, setting her glass back on the wobbly coffee table. "He loves you," declared it openly. He offered practical solutions for the conflict of interest. And you are punishing him for not telling you something that, let's be honest, was probably confidential until it was official. Sarah blinked, surprised. "You're on his side." "I'm not on anyone's side. I'm on the side of reality." Jessica leaned forward, her expression serious. "Sarah, do you want to know what I think? I think you're scared, terrified, and you're using this as an excuse to run away before it gets too real, before you risk your heart for real." "That's not fair," Sarah protested, but her voice was weak. "Not? Then tell me. If he had told you on the first date that he was in the process of buying the company where you work, would you have kept dating him?" Sarah opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. The truth was no, she probably wouldn't have. She would have found it too strange, too complicated, a giant red flag. "Exactly," Jessica said, reading the answer on her face. "He was in an impossible situation, Sarah. If he had told you too soon, you would have run away. If he hadn't told you, you would have felt betrayed. There was no way to win." "But he should have tried," Sarah insisted stubbornly. "He should have trusted me enough to—" "To what? To have you react exactly as you're reacting now?" Jessica shook her head. "Look, I'm not saying that he didn't make a mistake. He did. But you are also making a mistake by not giving him a chance to fix it, to prove that this is real." Sarah remained silent, letting the words sink in. Part of her knew that Jessica was right, but the other part, the scared and protective part, was still screaming danger. "What if I open up and he hurts me?" Sarah finally whispered. "What if he hurts Lily?" "What if he doesn't hurt you?" Jessica gently replied. "What if he is the real deal, the guy who stays, the guy who loves you the way you deserve? Are you going to throw that away out of fear?" "Fear is a valid reason," Sarah weakly argued. "Fear is a natural reaction, but it can't be what defines you." Jessica took her friend's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Sarah, you are the bravest person I know. You faced a pregnancy alone, raised an amazing daughter without anyone's help, worked 2 jobs, and still find the energy to read bedtime stories every night. You are a warrior. So why, when it comes to your heart, do you turn coward?" The words stung because they were true. Sarah had faced so much in life, but when it came to allowing herself to be vulnerable, to be loved, she ran away. "I don't know if I can," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Then try. Just Try. Jessica pulled her into a hug. Call him. Have a real conversation. Give you both a chance. Because, Sarah, I've seen you with him these past few weeks. I've seen you happy in a way I haven't seen in years. Don't throw that away without at least trying to fight for it. That night, after Jessica left, Sarah stayed awake for hours staring at her phone. 17 unread messages from David. She opened the most recent one, sent that afternoon. Sarah, I understand if you never want to see me again. I understand if I ruined everything irreparably. But I need you to know. You and Lily changed my life. You made me want to be better, to do better. And if I could go back, I would have told you everything from day one, even risking losing you. Because you deserve the whole truth. Always. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I will. Always be here. I love you. D. Sarah read the message 3 times, 4, 5, each word weighing on her heart. Then, before she could change her mind, she typed back, "Can we talk? Tomorrow?" The response came within seconds. "Yes. Any time. Anywhere. You choose." Sarah looked at the stained ceiling of her tiny apartment, her heart pounding. Was she doing the right thing, or was she preparing for more pain? But Jessica was right about one thing. She would never know if she didn't try. Sarah arranged to meet David at the same park where they had taken Lily, but this time just the two of them. Jessica would take care of the girl for the afternoon, giving them time to talk without interruptions. It was a cloudy Saturday in April, the air heavy with the promise of rain, and Sarah wore a simple sweater and jeans. Nothing special, nothing that indicated she was trying to impress him. He was already there when she arrived, sitting on the same bench where they had talked weeks before. He looked different, more tired, with deep circles under his eyes, his hair less perfectly styled. When he saw her approaching, he immediately stood up, his hands in his pockets, as if he didn't know what to do with them. "Hi," he said, his voice hoarse. "Hi." Sarah sat on the bench, leaving a respectful space between them. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable, until they both tried to speak at the same time. "I need to... Let me..." They stopped, and despite everything, Sarah felt a small smile touch her lips. "You first." David took a deep breath, as if preparing for a dive. "Sarah, I messed everything up, completely, and there's no excuse for that. You were right. I should have told you about the acquisitions as soon as I knew you worked there. I was a coward. I was so afraid of losing you that I ended up doing exactly what I feared the most." Sarah let him speak, watching the way he gestured nervously, how he seemed smaller somehow, less the confident executive, and more the vulnerable man she had started to know. "The truth is, the negotiations started months before I met you," David continued. "The grocery store was in financial trouble, the owners wanting to sell, and it made sense for the company. Portfolio diversification, revenue stability. Tech was just a coincidence. They do digitization work for several of our clients, and it made sense to bring that in-house. I swear on everything sacred that I had no idea you worked there until you mentioned it at dinner." "And when did you find out?" Sarah asked, her voice carefully neutral. "When you found out and didn't tell?" David ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. "The next day, I checked the employee records because I wanted to know more about you, about your life. And when I saw your name, I panicked. The acquisitions were in the final stages, contracts almost signed, everything confidential. I couldn't speak publicly without risking the whole deal, but I also didn't want to tell you and make you think it was some kind of manipulation." "So you just didn't say anything?" Sarah shook her head. "David, do you realize how this sounds, how it makes me feel? Like you were playing chess while I thought we were just living." "I know, and I hate that. I hate that I made you feel this way." He finally turned to look at her directly, and the pain in his eyes was palpable. But Sarah, I need you to understand. Nothing I feel for you has to do with work or money or any of those complications. When I'm with you and Lily, I forget all of that. I forget about being a CEO, about corporate responsibilities. Of all the masks I wear every day, with you I am just me, and it's been so long since I felt this way. Sarah felt something tighten in her chest. She understood what he meant, because she felt the same. With him, she wasn't just a single mom struggling to survive. She was Sarah, a complete person with desires and dreams and a life beyond motherhood. I understand that, she said softly, and maybe that's why it hurts so much, because it was real for me too. It is real. And when I found out about the companies, I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet, like everything I thought I knew about us was questionable. And what about my love for you? David asked, his voice low and intense. Is that questionable too? Because I didn't say that in a moment of anger or desperation. I said it because it's true. I fell in love with you, Sarah, for the way you love your daughter, for how you fight every day, for how genuine and honest you are, even when it hurts. And I understand if you can't believe that right now, if I destroyed any chance we had. But I don't want you to doubt what I feel. This is real, maybe the only real thing I have in my life. Tears began to fall down Sarah's face, and she wiped them away impatiently. It's not fair. You can't say those things and expect me to just forget everything. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be worthy of your trust. Again. Slowly, on your terms. David hesitated, then reached for her hand, pausing when their fingers were inches apart, waiting for permission. Please, Sarah, give me a chance. Sarah looked at his hand, then at his face, seeing the raw vulnerability there. Part of her wanted to be strong, to keep her walls up, to protect herself and Lily from any more possible pain. But the other part, the part that Jessica had forced her to recognize, was tired of being afraid, tired of always choosing safety over possibility. Slowly, she intertwined her fingers with his. One chance, but with conditions. The relief that flooded David's face was almost painful to see. Anything, whatever you need. Sarah took a deep breath, organizing her thoughts. First, I need total transparency. About work, about your life, about everything. No more surprises, no more hidden information. Even if you think you're protecting me, I'm an adult, I can handle information. What I can't handle is lies by omission. I completely agree, David said immediately. Total transparency, about everything. Second, I need you to resolve your work situation. Not because I'm ashamed to be with you, but because I need my credibility intact. I need people to know that my work, my achievements, are mine, not because I'm sleeping with the boss. David grimaced at the harshness of the words, but nodded. I've already started working on that. There's an open position at TexTech, full-time remote work, with a salary 40% higher than what you're making now at both jobs combined. It would be a legitimate promotion based on your qualifications and experience. And I would completely step away from managing that department, with reports going directly to my partner, eliminating any direct conflict of interest. Sarah blinked, processing. 40% more? David, it's what someone with your qualifications should be earning, he interrupted firmly. Sarah, you are overqualified for just operating a cash register. You have a degree in management, experience in leadership, technical skills. The only reason you're underemployed is that the market is cruel to single mums, and because you've never had the opportunity to show what you can do. This isn't charity or favoritism, it's recognizing wasted talent. Sarah didn't know what to say. The idea of working from home, of having a salary that would allow her not just to survive, but maybe even save, of having a job that utilized her brain instead of just her hands. It was almost unbelievable. "I will think about it," she finally said. "I need to see the details, the job description, understand what would be expected of me." "Of course. Whenever you want." David squeezed her hand gently. "What's the third condition?" Sarah looked him directly in the eyes. "Take it slow with Lily. I know you two got along, that she likes you, but she gets attached quickly and gets hurt deeply. If we're going to try this again, I need to know that you're committed. Not just to me, but to her as well, because she comes as a package, David. Always. And if you're not ready to be a constant figure in her life, then it's better to end things now. Sarah, I love you and I love Lily. That incredible, smart, crazy girl who never stops talking and wants to be a dinosaur veterinarian." David smiled, tears shining in his eyes. "Since that first day, at the park, when she decided we were friends because I brought a purple unicorn, I was lost. She reminds me why all of this matters, why it's worth working hard and making a difference, because kids like her deserve a better world." "You can't promise that you'll never hurt her," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Relationships end, things happen, but I need to know that you'll try, that you'll be present even when it's hard." "I promise I will try," David said solemnly. "I can't predict the future, I can't guarantee that we'll never have problems, but I can promise that I'll be there, that I'll fight for this, for us, that I won't disappear when things get complicated." Sarah stayed quiet for a long moment, just holding his hand, feeling the weight of everything she was deciding. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Lily, about their future, about risking the stability they had built for something that could be wonderful. "Okay," she finally whispered. "Okay, let's try again. Slowly, one day at a time." The smile that lit up David's face was like the sun coming out after a storm. He pulled Sarah into a tight hug, and she allowed herself to sink into him, feeling his solidity, the familiar scent of his cologne, the rapid beating of his heart against hers. "Thank you," he murmured against her hair. "Thank you for giving me another chance. I promise I won't waste it." They stayed like that for several minutes, just holding each other, reconnecting. When they finally separated, Sarah wiped her tears and tried to smile. "So, what do we do now?" "Now," David smiled, taking her hand and intertwining their fingers, "now I take you out for lunch. Somewhere simple, unpretentious, where we can just talk, and then, if you allow it, I would like to see Lily. I've missed her so much. Is she still in the phase of wearing tutus over everything?" Sarah laughed, feeling something light expand in her chest for the first time in weeks. "Always. Now she has a pink one, a purple one, and a blue one. She rotates between them." "Perfect. I'll have to learn to be a tutu expert then." They walked through the park, hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. David shared about the stress of the past few weeks, how he had been sleeping poorly since their fight, how his brother had called to scold him for being an idiot. Sarah shared how Lily had been sad about the office gossip, and how hard it had been to keep her head up. About work, David said as they sat down in a small, cozy Italian restaurant, so different from the garden bistro where they had met. "I also thought of another option, if you don't feel comfortable with the position at TexTech." "What?" "There's a project manager position in the education sector at Cruise Tech. We're developing a platform for working mums to access educational resources for their kids. It would be perfect for someone who understands the needs of that audience because they live it. And it would be a completely different department, with no connection to me in the reporting structure." Sarah considered it. "Project manager? David, I've never done that. I don't have experience in... You manage your whole life every day, he gently interrupted her. 2 jobs, a daughter, a home. You budget, plan, solve problems, multitask. Those are exactly the skills we need. And we would have training, of course. But Sarah, you are so much more capable than you think you are. I will think about it too, she said, her head spinning with possibilities. It's a lot to process. No pressure. I just wanted you to know that options exist, that you have choices, you have control over your career. David took her hand across the table. And no matter what you decide, I'm here, not as your boss, but as someone who loves you and wants to support you. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes again. When was the last time someone had given her real choices, options that weren't just variations of survival? After lunch, David took Sarah back to the apartment. The nervous tension she had felt throughout the conversation had dissipated, replaced by cautious hope. Not everything was resolved. Trust took time to rebuild, but at least they were trying, and that was already more than she had expected days ago. "Do you want to come up?" Sarah asked when they parked in front of the building. "Lily should be back by now. Jessica said she would bring her after lunch." "Are you sure? I don't want to force anything if you're still not ready for..." "David," Sarah interrupted him with a small smile. "Come up. She'll be happy to see you, and honestly, I also want you to stay a little." The smile that lit up his face was like a gift. They climbed the 3 flights of stairs, Sarah feeling more relaxed now, not worrying about what he would think of the worn building or the walls that needed painting. He already knew who she was. He had already seen her reality. There was nothing left to hide. When Sarah opened the door to the apartment, she found Lily on the couch with Jessica, both watching a Pixar movie. Lily casually looked up, but when she saw David, her whole face lit up. "David!" She jumped off the couch and ran, throwing herself into his arms with such force that he had to take a step back to avoid falling. "You're back! You're back! Mom said you were busy, but I knew you would come back." David picked her up, hugging her tightly, and Sarah saw tears in his eyes. "Hey, little one, of course I came back. I missed you so much." "I missed you too. You're not going to leave again, are you? Because I have so many things to tell you. I lost my tooth, look." Lily opened her mouth, proudly showing the space where her front tooth had been. "And the tooth fairy brought me $5, not 2. And I drew a dinosaur at school, and the teacher said it was really good, and I'm going to be a dinosaur veterinarian when I grow up. But Lucy said dinosaurs are extinct, but I said maybe they're not. They're just hiding somewhere secret." "Lily, breathe," Sarah laughed, but her heart was full, seeing the pure happiness on her daughter's face. Jessica stood up, grabbing her bag with a knowing smile for Sarah. "Well, I guess that's my cue to leave. I'll call later." "Definitely. And Jessica?" Sarah pulled her in for a quick hug. "Thank you for everything." "That's what friends are for," Jessica whispered back, and then she left, winking at David on her way out. The next few hours passed in a happy blur. Lily dragged David around the tiny apartment, showing him every drawing, every toy, every important treasure. He listened with genuine attention, asking questions, laughing at the right moments. Sarah treated every little detail of her life as if it were fascinating. She watched them from the tiny kitchen while preparing coffee, her heart contracting and expanding alternately. It was so easy to see them like this, so natural. Lily had never had a present father figure, and although Sarah tried to be everything her daughter needed, there were moments when she felt the absence, the void where someone else should be. "Mommy! Mommy!" Lily ran into the kitchen, pulling Sarah by the hand. "David said he can teach me how to make a game on the computer. Can I? Please?" Sarah looked at David, who was standing in the doorway of the room, hands in his pockets, hopeful expression, but making it clear that the decision was hers. She loved this about him, the way he respected her boundaries, how he never tried to override her as a mom. Sure, but only for an hour, okay? After that, you need to do your homework. Yay! Lily jumped for joy, then ran back to David, taking his hand and pulling him to the sofa where Sarah's old laptop was. Sarah joined them, sitting across from Lily as David opened a simple visual programming program designed for kids. He patiently explained each step, allowing Lily to make mistakes and learn from them, celebrating every little victory when she made something work. "Look, Mommy, I made the kitten jump," Lily shouted, clapping her hands. "Very good, my love. You're so smart." When the hour was up, Lily protested, but accepted when David promised he would come back another day and they could do more. She went to do her homework at the kitchen table, and Sarah and David finally had a moment to talk more quietly. "Thank you for this," Sarah said softly, sitting next to him on the sofa. "For being so present with her, so thoughtful. You don't need to thank me. I love spending time with her. She's amazing, Sarah. You did an incredible job." David hesitated, then asked, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. What do you feel about the future? Not now, not tomorrow, but eventually. Have you thought about what it would be like if this works out? If we become a family?" Sarah felt her heart race. It was a huge question, loaded with implications and possibilities that terrified and excited her in equal measure. "I have thought about it, but I'm also scared. Scared that it might be too good to be true, scared that something might go wrong and Lily could get hurt, scared of losing my independence, of becoming dependent on someone who might leave." "I understand all those fears, and they're valid." David took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "But what if it doesn't go wrong? What if this is real, lasting? What if we build something solid, based on mutual respect and true love?" "How can you be so sure?" Sarah asked, feeling vulnerable. "You've known me for less than 2 months. How can you be so sure? You want this, that you want us." David was quiet for a moment, considering. "You know that feeling when you find something you were looking for without knowing you were searching? That's how I feel about you both. My whole life has been about building the company, proving my worth, reaching the next goal, and I achieved everything I wanted professionally. But it was empty, Sarah. Really empty. Until that night at the restaurant when you sat across from me and were brutally honest about your life." He turned to look at her directly, and the intensity in his eyes made her catch her breath. "You woke me up. You made me remember that there's life beyond work, that there's real connection and true love and perfect little moments like teaching a 6-year-old girl to code. You showed me what I was missing, and now that I know how it is, I don't want to go back to the emptiness." Sarah felt tears burning in her eyes. "I feel that way too, scared and happy and terrified all at once, like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing I could fly or fall, not knowing which. It will be." "Then let's jump together," David said softly, "and if we fall together. But Sarah, I really think we're going to fly." She leaned in and kissed him, a soft and hesitant kiss at first, then deeper, more certain. It was their first kiss. All the other moments before had been interrupted or postponed, and there was a promise in it, a possibility of a future that made Sarah's heart sing and cry at the same time. You guys are kissing!" Lily's voice made them pull apart, both laughing as they saw the girl making a disgusted face in the kitchen doorway. "Sorry, little one," David said, not looking the least bit regretful. "Sometimes adults do that." "Why?" "It's gross," Lily insisted, but there was a sparkle in her eyes, a contentment in seeing her mum happy. "You'll understand when you grow up," Sarah promised, still laughing. "Did you finish your homework?" "I did. Can I play a little more before dinner?" "You can." Lily ran back to her room, and Sarah and David stayed there, goofy smiles on their faces, hands intertwined, the future opening up before them in infinite possibilities. In the following weeks, they established a new routine. David came over for dinner twice a week, always bringing something, sometimes food, sometimes a small toy for Lily, once a toolkit, because Sarah had mentioned that the kitchen faucet was dripping, and she didn't have the money to call a plumber. He fixed the faucet, then helped to secure a shelf that was loose, and Sarah had to fight the urge to feel inadequate for needing help. "It's not about you not being capable," David said when she tried to protest. "It's about having someone who wants to help because they care. You would do the same for me if I needed it." And she would, starting to understand that true relationships were about giving and receiving, not about keeping score of who did what. Sarah also began to seriously consider job offers. After much thought, she had a long conversation with Jessica and even consulted a labor attorney that David recommended and paid for, despite Sarah's protests. She decided to accept the position of project manager in the education sector. It was daunting, a huge leap from cashier to management, but also exciting. For the first time in years, she would have a job that challenged her mind, utilizing her degree that had been so hard-earned. "You're going to be amazing," David assured her as she signed the contract. "And Sarah, I had nothing to do with the decision to hire you. It was purely based on merit, your interview and qualifications. The HR team didn't even know we knew each other." It was important for her to know this, that she had earned it on her own. The first day at the new job was terrifying and thrilling. The team welcomed her warmly, and although there was a steep learning curve, Sarah discovered that she loved the work. She enjoyed contributing ideas, using her experience as a single mom to inform product development that would genuinely help families like hers. And for the first time in 6 years, she was able to pay all the bills at the end of the month. She could even save a little. The feeling of financial security, however precarious it still was intoxicating. "Mum, can we buy ice cream?" Lily asked one Saturday afternoon while they were walking through the grocery store. Sarah paused, as she always did, mentally calculating, but this time, when she looked at the price, she realized she didn't have to choose between ice cream and paying the electric bill. She could have both. "Of course, sweetheart. Choose any flavor you want." The smile on Lily's face was like sunshine, and Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. It was the little things, she realized, not grand gestures or dramatic changes, but the ability to say yes to ice cream without guilt or fear. That was freedom. That was dignity. That night when David came over for dinner and Lily was particularly chatty about the penguins they had seen in a documentary at school, Sarah watched the two of them animatedly discussing Antarctica and animal adaptation, and she realized something fundamental. She was happy, genuinely, deeply happy. And it wasn't because David had saved her or made her life perfect. It was because he had walked alongside her while she saved herself, respecting her strength while offering support. "What are you thinking about?" David asked later, when Lily was already asleep and they were sitting on the sofa, their bodies relaxed against each other. "I'm thinking that I'm happy," Sarah admitted. "Scarily happy, like at any moment someone is going to show up and say, 'It was all a mistake, that I can't have this.'" "You can have this," David said firmly, kissing her forehead. "You deserve this. You deserve happiness, security, love, and I'm going to spend every day reminding you of that until you believe it." "I'm starting to believe it," she whispered. And it was true. 6 months later, on a warm October afternoon, Sarah was at the EduTech office reviewing proposals for the new educational platform when her cell phone rang. It was Lily's school, and Sarah's heart immediately raced. Calls from school were never good news. "Miss Johnson, This is the educational coordinator, Karen. Don't worry, Lily is fine, but there was an incident. Sarah was already grabbing her bag, walking toward the door. What kind of incident? A boy in her class made hurtful comments about her not having a dad. Lily pushed him, and there was a small fight. No one was seriously hurt, but we need you to come pick her up. And maybe we can talk about how to handle these situations. Sarah closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She knew this day would eventually come. Kids could be cruel, and Lily was reaching the age where these differences began to matter. I'm on my way now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She sent a quick message to David explaining the situation, and then rushed out. The traffic in New York City conspired against her, and it was a torturous 30 minutes before she arrived at the school. Lily was sitting outside the coordinator's office, her eyes red from crying. Her school uniform wrinkled, a smudge of dirt on her knee. "Sweetheart," Sarah knelt in front of her, checking for injuries. "Are you okay?" "I hate Jake," Lily exploded, fresh tears falling. "He said I don't have a dad because no one wants me, that's why my dad left. And I said that wasn't true, that you love me so much, but he wouldn't stop, Mum. He kept saying horrible things and I pushed him." Sarah pulled her daughter into a tight embrace, feeling her own heart break. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to hear that." The conversation with the coordinator was tense but productive. The boy would be reprimanded. For bullying, there would be a talk with his parents, and the school would implement more activities about family diversity. But Sarah knew it wouldn't end there. Kids absorbed prejudices from adults, and there would always be more comments, more difficult situations. On the way home, Lily was quiet, staring out the window, and Sarah could see the heavy thoughts crossing her daughter's small face. "Lily," Sarah began gently, "what Jake said was cruel and wrong. But I need you to understand something very important. Having just one mum doesn't make you any less loved or less valuable than kids with two parents. Our family may be different, but it's whole. It's perfect just the way it is." "But I wanted to have a dad," Lily whispered, so softly that Sarah almost didn't hear. "All my friends do. Why don't I have one?" Sarah had to. Sarah quickly blinked to wipe away the tears, keeping her eyes on the road. Because sometimes life doesn't go the way we plan, sweetheart. Your dad, he wasn't ready to be a dad, and that's not your fault, it never was. It was his choice, and it was his loss, because he lost the chance to meet the most amazing girl in the world. Could David be my dad? The question came out hesitantly, hopefully, and Sarah felt the air escape her lungs. They had arrived at the apartment, and Sarah parked before turning completely to look at Lily. "Sweetheart, David really likes you, and your mom too. But these things, they're complicated. They need time. But you like him, don't you? I see you two kissing." Lily made a face, but there was a small smile there. "Yes, I like him a lot," Sarah admitted, her heart warming. "A lot. And he likes us?" "Yes, he does." "Then why can't he be my dad? He already does dad things, takes me places, teaches me things, fixes things in our house. What's missing?" Sarah realized she didn't have a good answer for that. "Let's talk about this later, okay? Right now we need to go inside. You need a bath and a snack." But the conversation echoed in Sarah's mind for the rest of the day. Lily was right. David had become an integral part of their lives in the past few months. He was there for all the important moments and the small ones too. When Lily had a fever, he showed up with medicine and ice cream. When Sarah had an important presentation at work, he stayed with Lily so she could prepare properly. He wasn't just Sarah's boyfriend, he was part of their family. Later that night, after Lily finally fell asleep, emotionally exhausted from the difficult day, David appeared at the door with Thai food and a worried expression. "How is she?" he asked as soon as he entered, looking toward the bedroom. "Sleeping. It was a tough day." Sarah pulled him to the couch. telling him everything, the fight, the cruel comments, but mostly Lily's question about him being her dad. David was quiet for a long moment, processing. "And what did you say?" "That these things are complicated, that they need time." Sarah looked at her hands, nervous. "But David, she's right. You already do everything a dad would do. You're present, you care, you love her. I see that." "I do love her," David confirmed immediately. "I love both of you. And Sarah, I was waiting for the right moment to have this conversation, but maybe it's... And now." He took her hand, his eyes intense and serious. "I want to be an official part of your family, not just the boyfriend who comes over for dinner a few times a week, but something more permanent." Sarah's heart stopped. "What are you saying?" David slid off the couch to the floor, kneeling in front of her, and Sarah felt tears instantly fill her eyes. "I'm saying I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up every morning and see your faces. I want to help with homework and go to school, presentations, and argue about which ice cream flavor is the best. I want to be there when Lily loses all her baby teeth, and when she learns to drive, and when she goes to college. I want all the boring and hard parts, not just the good moments." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring, a solitaire in white gold, nothing ostentatious, but absolutely perfect. "Sarah Johnson, will you marry me?" Sarah was openly crying now, her hands trembling as she covered her mouth. "David, this is... If it's too fast, I understand," he hurried to say. "We can have a long engagement, no rush at all. But Sarah, I've never been so sure of anything in my life. You are my person, you both are my family, and I want to make this official." "Yes," Sarah whispered, then louder, "Yes, yes, I want to marry you." David slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled her in for a deep, lingering kiss, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. When they separated, Sarah couldn't stop looking at the ring on her finger, still not completely believing this was real. "Lily is going to freak out with happiness," she said, laughing through her tears. "Actually," David said with a mischievous smile, "I already asked for her permission. Last week, when I took her out for ice cream while you were at that important meeting," Sarah looked at him in shock, "you asked my 6-year-old daughter for permission before proposing to me. Of course, she's an essential part of this equation. I needed to know she was okay with it." David smiled, reminiscing. "She said, and I quote, 'Finally, I've been waiting. And for this, for ages.'" Apparently 6 months is ages in kid time. Sarah laughed until her stomach hurt, the sound mixed with sobs of joy. "I love you. I love you so much it's sometimes scary." "I love you too. And Sarah, about her question earlier about me being her dad." David hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I will never try to replace her biological dad, but if she wants, if you allow it, I would love to be her dad in every way that matters. To legally adopt her, if and when she's ready. To give her my last name if she wants. To be the person she can count on, always." "Are you sure?" Sarah asked, vulnerable. "It's a huge responsibility, David, for the rest of your life." "I've never been so sure of anything," he repeated, firm and serious. "Lily is extraordinary, and it would be my honor to be called Dad by her." They stayed up late talking about it all. The future, about when to tell Lily, about when the wedding would be. Sarah wanted something simple, just close family and friends. About where they would live. David wanted them to move into his apartment. But Sarah insisted on contributing equally, not wanting to be supported. About all the practical and emotional details of merging 2 lives into one. "And what about your job?" David asked. "I know some colleagues still make comments. This will get worse when we get married." Sarah had thought about this. "Let them talk. I know my worth. I earned my position on merit. If anyone has a problem with that, it's their issue, not mine. I'm not going to hide our relationship or be ashamed of it." "You're amazing," David said, admiration clear in his voice. "Stronger than I am." "I had to be," Sarah replied simply. "I had no choice. But now I have you by my side. That changes everything." The next morning, Lily woke up early as always and found them on the couch, where they had fallen asleep talking. She stopped, observing with that serious expression that sometimes took over her face, making her look much older than her 6 years. "Did you sleep here?" she asked. "Yes, we were talking late," Sarah explained, sitting up. "Come here, sweetheart, we have something to tell you." Lily approached cautiously, and Sarah pulled her onto her lap. David knelt in front of them, taking Lily's small hand. "Lily, remember when you asked if I could be your dad?" he began gently. Lily's eyes widened. "Yes. Well, I asked your mom to marry me last night, and she said yes. That means we're going to be a real family, officially. And if you want, if you're comfortable with it, I would love to be your dad. Not to replace anyone, but to be the person who is here for you. Always." For a moment that felt like an eternity. Lily just looked at them, processing. Then, slowly, a huge smile spread across her face. "Really? You're going to be my dad for real?" "If you want," David confirmed, his voice choked. "I want!" Lily shouted, jumping from Sarah's lap straight into David's arms, hugging him with all the strength of her small body. "I want it so much. And can I call you Dad? And will you live with us? And will I have a dad to take to the school presentation?" David was openly crying now, holding Lily against his chest. "Yes to everything, yes, yes, yes." Sarah watched, tears streaming freely down her face, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. 7 months ago, she had walked into that restaurant expecting nothing more than a night out, maybe a pleasant conversation. She could never have imagined that she would find this, true love, a family, a future shining with possibilities. "Group hug," Lily declared, and Sarah joined them on the floor, the three of them intertwined in a messy and perfect embrace. "We're going to need a bigger apartment," Sarah eventually said, laughing through her tears. "We won't fit the three of us here." "I was already thinking about that," David admitted. "But this time you choose. Our home, our family, our decisions, together." "Together," Sarah repeated, and the word had never sounded so perfect. 6 months later, on a spring afternoon with an impossibly blue sky and the scent of lilacs in the air, Sarah stood in front of the mirror in the spacious bedroom she now shared with David in the apartment they had chosen together in West Village. Her wedding dress was simple, white, knee-length, elegant, but not ostentatious, exactly how she wanted it. "Mom, you look beautiful." Lily twirled in, her light pink, flower girl dress flying around her. Like a princess, but a real princess, not one of those from cartoons. Sarah laughed, adjusting the flower tiara in Lily's hair. "And you look perfect, my love. The most beautiful flower girl ever." "Dad is already nervous down there," Lily informed, and Sarah felt her heart warm as it always did when Lily called David Dad. The adoption process was underway, but in their hearts, that had already been a reality for months. "Really? And you? Are you nervous?" "A little," Lily admitted, "but like happy nervous. Because after today we'll be an official family on paper too, not just in our hearts." Sarah knelt down, careful not to wrinkle her dress, and held her daughter's hands. "My love, you know we've always been family, just the two of us, right? Nothing changes that. David, your dad. He's a wonderful addition, but you and I, we were already whole." "I know," Lily said seriously. "But it's nice not to just be the two of us anymore, right? It's nice to have more people to love." "It's very nice," Sarah agreed, pulling her in for a quick hug. Shall we? The ceremony was small and perfect, just close family and close friends in the garden of a small event space. Jessica was there as the maid of honor, crying profusely since Sarah started walking down the aisle. David's mom, Mrs. Smith, a small woman, but with a strong presence, hugged Sarah as if she were her own daughter, whispering, "Welcome to the family," in her ear. David was waiting for her at the makeshift altar, looking handsome in his light grey suit, his eyes shining when he saw her approaching. When their eyes met, everything else disappeared, the people, the music, the whole world. There was only them and the promise of the future they would build together. The vows were simple but profound. David promised to be present in all moments, big and small, to love not only Sarah but also Lily, to build a family based on respect and partnership. Sarah promised to trust, to open her heart completely, to allow herself to be loved as much as she loved. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Lily shouted, "Finally!" so loudly that everyone laughed, including the couple at the altar. And when they kissed, sealing their vows, in that promise, Sarah felt as if all the pieces of her life had finally fallen into the right place. The party was simple, good food, cheerful music, people who loved celebrating love. Sarah danced with David, then with Lily, and then the three of them together in a clumsy and joyful dance that made everyone applaud. As the night was coming to an end and the guests were starting to leave, Sarah found herself in the garden for a moment, just breathing, absorbing everything. David found her there, hugging her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about, Ms. Cruz?" he murmured, and she smiled at hearing her new name. "I'm thinking about how strange life is," she replied, turning in his arms to face him. 8 months ago I was terrified to go on a blind date, convinced that I didn't deserve happiness, that love was something for other people, not for single mums just trying to survive. And now? Now I know I deserved it all along. Not because you saved me or completed me, but because I realized I was already complete. You just helped me see that. And you gave me a real partnership where I can be strong and vulnerable at the same time. David kissed her gently. You saved me too, you know. I was so lost before I met you, so focused on things that didn't really matter. You showed me what matters. Love, family, perfect little moments. "Mom, Dad, come on, they're going to cut the cake," Lily shouted from inside, always impatient. They laughed, hand in hand, walking back inside, where family and friends were waiting, where Lily was bouncing with excitement, where the future shone with promises of ordinary and extraordinary days, of challenges and victories, of a life built not on fantasies, but on real, imperfect, and absolutely true love. And Sarah, looking around at everything they had built, she, David, and Lily, their imperfect yet perfect family, knew with absolute certainty that that night at the restaurant, when she almost ran away but chose to stay, when she said, "I'm not the girl you should meet," and he responded by staying anyway, had been the beginning of everything that truly mattered. Sometimes the best beginnings come disguised as endings. Sometimes you have to risk everything to gain everything. And sometimes, just sometimes, when you are brave enough to be completely honest about who you are, with all your flaws, fears, and baggage, you find someone who not only accepts all of that, but loves you precisely for it. And that, Sarah thought as she cut the cake surrounded by the two people she loved most in the world, was the real magic. Not fairy tales or perfect endings, but real love, worked for, earned, chosen every day. And it was worth every moment of fear, every tear, every doubt, because it had brought her to this point, to her family, to her home, to her imperfect and absolutely real happily ever after.